There comes a breaking point where your silence is no longer patience, it's liberation. Chosen ones, let's be real. People don't talk when you're crying, they talk when you stop caring. The moment you shift from defending yourself to saying, you know what, I truly don't give a damn anymore, that's when the gossip wheel starts spinning faster than ever. Funny how that works, right? The louder you screamed your truth, the less they listened. But the second you shrugged, suddenly, they can't stop whispering. Here's a fact. Psychologists call it reactance, the human tendency to want what they can't have. The moment you pulled your energy back, the moment you stopped feeding their drama, they wanted it 10 times more. That's why they're sitting in circles, dissecting your every move, turning your disinterest into the hottest topic in town. And here's the irony. You not caring has given them more sleepless nights than all your battles ever did. They thought your downfall would entertain them, but your indifference is what truly haunts them. It's like you flipped the table, walked out the room, and somehow the game is still going on, but without you, and they don't know what to do. So buckle up. Because in this message, we're about to uncover why your detachment has become the headline of their lives, why they're still pressed about a version of you that no longer exists, and why your refusal to play has left them choking on their own narratives. And yes, laugh a little, because if they're still talking while you DJAF, you've already won. Number 1, you didn't arrive at not caring. They forced you there. You didn't just wake up one morning and decide you didn't care anymore. That shift didn't come out of nowhere. It was the result of being dragged through cycles that wore you down to the bone. At first, you cared deeply. You cared about people's opinions, their feelings, their expectations, and whether or not you were doing right by them. You tried harder than most would admit. You gave chances, you explained yourself. You defended your name, and you bent over backwards, just to prove that your heart was in the right place. But the more you gave, the more they took. The more you tried, the less it mattered. Every act of good faith was met with betrayal. Every attempt at peace was met with conflict, and every ounce of love was twisted into a weapon. So when people say, oh, you don't care anymore, they don't see the road that got you there. They don't see the nights you stayed up asking yourself what you could have done differently. They don't see how you replayed conversations in your mind, wondering if you were the problem. They don't see the prayers, the tears, the silent battles where you begged for clarity. All they see now is a version of you that no longer entertains their drama, and they mistake that for coldness. But the truth is, your detachment is a scar. It's proof you survived being stretched past your breaking point. When you finally stopped caring, it wasn't about bitterness. It was about self-preservation. It was about finally realizing that no amount of explaining, no amount of proving, and no amount of pouring yourself out would ever satisfy people who were committed to misunderstanding you. It was about cutting the cords that were choking you and saying, if you don't value me, then I'll stop performing for you. And that's why you DGF now, because you were pushed, prodded, and tested so long that indifference became the only way to protect what little strength you had left. And here's the irony. People now talk about your detachment as if it's arrogance, when in reality it's survival. They don't understand that your indifference was earned through fire. And if they pushed you there, then they only have themselves to blame. You didn't stop caring because you were weak. You stopped caring because caring for them was killing you. Number 2, you care too much about what actually matters. People assume that because you stopped entertaining nonsense, you suddenly stopped caring altogether. But the truth is, you care more than ever. You just care differently now. You care about what actually matters, not the distractions, not the petty games, not the endless cycle of trying to win people over who never truly valued you. That shift is what throws people off. They're so used to seeing you drained, jumping through hoops to keep everyone comfortable, explaining yourself until your throat ran dry, that they can't handle this version of you who has boundaries, focus, and clarity about where your energy belongs. The reason they talk about how you DAF is because they can't recognize the difference between wasted care and purposeful care. You still have a deep heart, but you've learned the hard way that not everyone deserves access to it. So instead of pouring your soul into ungrateful hands, you're now investing in yourself, your peace, your growth, and the people who actually show you genuine love. That's not indifference, it's maturity. It's choosing quality over quantity and purpose over performance. This shift didn't come easily. You had to feel the sting of betrayal, the weight of being overlooked, the frustration of being misunderstood to finally learn that caring doesn't mean bending until you break. Real care means protecting your energy so it flows where it counts. And the people upset about your new attitude? They were never interested in your well-being. They were interested in your availability. They don't miss your kindness. They miss how your kindness made their lives easier, even at the expense of your own. The real irony is that you care too much to keep wasting yourself on people who have already shown you who they are. It takes strength to say, "I see you, I hear you, but I'm not giving you all of me anymore." That's not heartlessness, it's wisdom. And that wisdom is what makes them uncomfortable, because they can't manipulate it, they can't twist it, and they can't use it against you anymore. So yes, you DGAF about their gossip, their approval, their little power plays. But that's only because you're too busy caring about what truly shapes your destiny, your peace, your healing, your future, and that's the kind of care they'll never understand. Number 3. Indifference is the loudest evidence of healing. When people say you don't care anymore, what they're really witnessing is evidence that you've healed. Indifference for you didn't come from being cold. It came from learning how to stop bleeding from wounds other people kept opening. Before, every insult, every rejection, every rumor would sit heavy on your chest. You'd replay words in your mind for days, feeling anxious, defensive, and powerless. But somewhere along the way, after all the heartbreaks and disappointments, your body and spirit adjusted. You realized you couldn't live constantly on edge, constantly reacting, constantly proving yourself. And that's when indifference became a sign that you had grown stronger, not weaker. What looks like not caring to others is actually emotional balance. You no longer let outside noise hijack your peace. Your nervous system has stopped going into overdrive just because someone rolled their eyes at you, ignored your worth, or spread lies about you. It doesn't mean you don't notice what happens. It just means you no longer hand over your energy every time someone tries to provoke you. That shift is healing in its purest form because you've taught yourself to stop letting their chaos control your inner world. The thing people don't get is that indifference is a graduation. It means you've passed through the stage of fighting to be heard, the stage of bending yourself into pieces just to keep the peace, the stage of trying to win people over who were never invested in you to begin with. Indifference is what happens when you've cried your tears, you've asked your questions, you've looked for answers, and then finally realized the answers don't matter. Your healing has freed you from needing their validation to survive, and that's what unsettles them most. They were used to you being easily shaken, easily broken, easily manipulated. Now they see you walking through the same storms that once knocked you down, but you're calm, you're steady, and you don't react the way you used to. That's not arrogance, it's resilience. It's proof you've reclaimed yourself. So when they whisper that you don't care, let them talk. They'll never understand that indifference is not the absence of love, but the presence of healing. It's the clearest sign that you've finally chosen yourself. Number 4. People miss the old you because they could control that version. They don't actually miss you. They miss the version of you that was easier to handle, easier to bend, easier to guilt into compliance. That older version of yourself was open to being drained, manipulated, and used under the disguise of love, loyalty, or family. You showed up for people even when they didn't deserve it. You forgave too quickly, explained too much, and gave them endless access to your time and energy. They had control then, because they knew how to push your buttons and trigger a reaction. That's the version they long for, the one who kept carrying burdens that weren't yours to carry. Now that you've grown into a different space, your detachment frustrates them. It's not that you've turned heartless, it's that you've stopped making yourself an easy target, and that change exposes something they never wanted to face. Without your emotional reaction, they are powerless. Their games no longer work. Their words don't cut the way they used to. Their manipulation falls flat Because you've taken back the one thing they depended on, your availability. That's why your apathy offends them so much. It's not just that you won't argue anymore, it's that you refuse to even engage. You've closed the door they used to walk in and out of freely, and now they're stuck outside, screaming for access that no longer exists. They want the old version of you back because that version kept them comfortable while secretly keeping you in chains. But once you saw through the pattern, once you understood how much power you were giving away, there was no going back. And here's the truth they'll never admit. They don't actually want what's best for you. They want what's best for themselves. The old you served them. The new you serves God, purpose, and peace. That's why they're restless. Your evolution broke the contract of exploitation, and now your absence has become their greatest punishment. They'll call it arrogance, coldness, selfishness, but really it's freedom. They miss the version of you they could control, but they will never get that person back again. Number 5. You stopped playing their game when you realized it was rigged. You didn't walk away from their games because you were weak or afraid. You walked away because you finally saw the truth. The game was never fair. Every argument, every setup, every so-called debate was stacked against you from the start. No matter what move you made, they had already decided you were wrong. If you stayed quiet, they accused you of being guilty. If you spoke up, they twisted your words. If you forgave, they mocked you as naive. If you set boundaries, they painted you as selfish. It wasn't a game at all. It was a trap, dressed up as one. That's why your refusal to keep playing shook them so deeply. For the first time, you decided that their scoreboard didn't matter, that their opinions weren't the authority, and that their validation wasn't the prize you were chasing. And the moment you walked away, you didn't lose. You exposed the entire system. You proved that the only way to win against manipulation is to stop giving it an audience. They're frustrated now because their tricks only worked when you were still on the board, running in circles, trying to prove your worth. They miss the days when they could provoke you, knowing exactly how you would respond. But when you stopped reacting, when you stopped feeding the conflict, you pulled the rug out from under their entire strategy. Their so-called power depended on you showing up to play. Without your participation, the whole setup collapsed. This is why they talk about you with so much bitterness. Your choice to stop playing feels like rebellion because it robbed them of the control they thought they had over your life. You didn't just quit. You rewrote the rules. You proved that the only way to keep your soul intact is to step out of games designed to drain it. Refusing to play isn't quitting, it's mastery. It's the ultimate move they never saw coming. And now, every time they look at you living free, unbothered, and untangled from their drama, they're reminded that you didn't just walk away, you overturned their entire system of control. You won by refusing to let them decide what victory even means. Number 6. They wanted you invested so they could feed off your energy. They never really wanted peace with you, they wanted access to you. Every argument, every petty jab, every staged conflict was designed to keep you locked in, because your emotional energy was their fuel. They thrived off the fire in your voice, the hurt in your eyes, the way you'd bend over backwards to defend yourself. Your reactions fed them in ways they couldn't generate on their own. It wasn't about truth or fairness. It was about entertainment, control, and ego. The more invested you were, the more powerful they felt. But then you stopped. You detached. You pulled your energy back and gave them nothing. That's why they're talking now, because your silence starves them in a way your words never could. They were addicted to the adrenaline of your reactions, and when you cut them off, it was like snatching away their drug of choice. Suddenly they're left sitting in the emptiness of their own lives, realizing they don't know how to function without the chaos they created around you. That's the part that burns them the most. Your detachment has revealed just how dependent they were on your energy. While you've moved forward and found strength in your peace, they're stuck replaying the old cycles, desperate for a taste of the reaction they'll never get again. They gossip because it's the only way left to feel connected to you. They spin stories because they're still chasing that old high of having your attention. But deep down, they know it's over. The truth is, your indifference has done more damage than any clapback ever could. You didn't just walk away, you cut off the supply, and now their obsession with how little you care is really a confession of how much they still do. They're restless, unsettled, and frustrated because they can't get a rise out of you anymore. They wanted you invested so they could keep feeding, but the moment you chose detachment, you flipped the script. They're left starving, and you're thriving. What they see as arrogance is actually freedom, and what they call apathy is really your refusal to keep being someone else's lifeline at the cost of your own soul. Number 7. Apathy became your sharpest weapon. Apathy is not weakness, it's precision. When you reached the point of indifference, it wasn't because you had nothing left. It was because you discovered that your energy was too valuable to waste on people who only wanted to drain it. For a long time, they thrived on pulling you into their chaos. They wanted shouting matches, emotional breakdowns, or endless debates that left you feeling empty. They needed you to react because every reaction was proof that they still had power over you. But when you stopped responding, when you stopped showing up to their carefully staged wars, that's when you cut them the deepest. Nothing unnerves a person more than realizing the battle they prepared for will never happen. They wanted you swinging, defending, and proving yourself, but instead you folded your arms and walked away. That's when apathy became your sharpest weapon. It doesn't throw punches, but it disarms. It doesn't shout, but it silences. It doesn't destroy you. It destroys the illusion that they ever had control. They can't handle it because apathy leaves them no target. Insults bounce back unanswered. Traps stay untouched. Provocations echo in the air with no response. To them, it feels like a loss they can't explain. They expected you to play, but you didn't even step onto the field. And when there's no opponent, there's no victory to claim. This is why your indifference haunts them more than any retaliation could. Words can be twisted, actions can be spun, but apathy? That can't be manipulated. It's final. It's the full stop at the end of a long sentence of battles you no longer care to fight. And here's the real twist. Your refusal to participate didn't just save you, it exposed them. Because now, without you to feed on, their toxicity is on full display for everyone else to see. You were their favorite sparring partner, and without you, they're left shadowboxing with themselves. That's not just a loss, that's humiliation. So yes, your apathy is a weapon, but not one forged in bitterness. It's forged in wisdom. You won not by crushing them, but by refusing to let them use you as their battleground. And nothing cuts deeper than that kind of victory. Number 8. Not caring is a spiritual graduation. Not caring isn't about being lazy or giving up. It's about realizing you've outgrown the level where those little battles even matter. For a long time, every insult felt like a wound. Every setup felt like a storm. Every jab felt like an earthquake. You carried the weight of people's words and actions like they determined your worth. But the moment you stopped caring, it wasn't because you lost heart. It was because your spirit graduated. You stepped into a higher space where your energy is too precious to be wasted on fights that don't shape your future. That's what people don't understand. They see your calm as indifference, but in truth, it's transcendence. You're no longer shaken by the opinions of those who were never invested in your destiny. You've realized that not every insult needs a response, not every provocation deserves your time, and not every betrayal requires you to prove your innocence. By refusing to invest in battles that lead nowhere, you've freed yourself to focus on the ones that actually matter: your purpose, your peace, your alignment with God. This kind of not caring takes discipline. It's not easy to walk away from conflict when everything in you wants to defend yourself. It's not easy to stay still when lies are being spread about you. But spiritual graduation means you understand that real power isn't in defending your name. It's in knowing that your destiny will speak louder than anything they can say. You stopped caring about temporary chatter because you're locked in on eternal results, and that shift unsettles people. They expect you to fight back, to be reactive, to show that they still have a hold on you. But when you don't give them that satisfaction, it exposes how much smaller their world is compared to yours. They're stuck in petty cycles while you've stepped into something greater. That's not laziness, it's evolution. Not caring is proof that you've crossed into a different dimension of strength. You're no longer available for distractions that delay your growth. You've chosen to invest in destiny over drama, peace over pettiness, and purpose over performance. That's what makes it a graduation. It's not an ending. It's a promotion to a higher level of living, and once you're there, you'll never go back. Number 9. They confuse silence with defeat, but it's your proof of victory. They'll never admit it out loud, but the real reason they keep talking is because your silence unsettles them. They expected a fight, a dramatic breakdown, or at least a desperate attempt to prove yourself. Instead, you walked away. You stopped engaging in their endless cycles of accusations, setups, and mind games. To them, that looks like defeat, because in their world, whoever shouts the loudest, whoever argues the longest, is the one who wins. But in reality, your refusal to engage was the clearest proof that you'd already claimed victory. Silence is misunderstood because it looks passive on the outside. People assume you're avoiding, hiding, or too weak to defend yourself. But what they don't grasp is the strength it takes to sit in that silence without feeling the need to prove a single thing. You didn't stay quiet because you had no words. You stayed quiet because you finally understood that your words weren't required. That kind of restraint doesn't come from fear. It comes from power. It's the kind of power that says, "You no longer have the right to drain me." Your silence was never surrender. It was strategy. By refusing to be dragged down into their noise, you denied them the reaction they craved. You stopped playing their game, and in doing so, you stripped them of the only weapon they ever had against you, your response. That's why they gossip now. They spin stories and mock your detachment because deep down they know they've lost their grip. They can't control someone who won't participate. What makes your silence victorious is that it left them exposed. Without you reacting, all that's left is their bitterness, their lies, their schemes, and people can finally see it for what it is. Your absence from the battlefield put a spotlight on their desperation, and while they're busy convincing each other that you gave up, your life continues to rise, your peace deepens, and your spirit grows stronger. So let them confuse your silence with defeat. They'll never understand that your silence wasn't weakness, it was the final move. You didn't bow out, you ascended, and in the end, victory doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, and that whisper is louder than all their noise combined. Number 10. You learned that being misunderstood is freedom. There was a time when being misunderstood used to eat at you. You wanted people to see your heart clearly, to know your intentions, to recognize that you were genuine. You'd spend hours explaining yourself, rephrasing your words, and bending yourself into 1,000 shapes, just so no one could twist your meaning. But the hard truth you learned is that some people were never interested in understanding you in the first place. They were committed to their version of you because that version served their ego and their gossip. No amount of explanation was ever going to change that. And that's when the breakthrough came. Being misunderstood isn't a prison, it's actually freedom. Once you stop caring about how others perceive you, their narratives lose all their power. You realize that you don't owe clarity to people who thrive on confusion. You don't have to hand over your peace just to fix an image that was never accurate to begin with. Let them believe what they want, because their belief doesn't alter your truth. Your indifference is a declaration that you've reclaimed your life from the court of public opinion. You no longer need to defend yourself to people who twist every word, because defending yourself to them was always a losing battle. If someone is determined to misunderstand you, even your silence will be misinterpreted. That cycle ends the moment you say, "Believe whatever helps you sleep at night. I know who I am." The freedom in that mindset is unmatched. You're no longer bound to the exhausting performance of proving your worth or correcting every rumor. Instead, you've placed your focus on what's real, your growth, your calling, your alignment with God. Their narratives can spin all they want, but you've stopped giving them oxygen. And here's the irony. When you stopped caring, that's when people became the most curious. Your refusal to explain shook them, because they expected you to defend yourself endlessly. Instead, you left them to wrestle with their own lies. That silence has more weight than all the arguments you used to make. Being misunderstood no longer hurts you, it frees you. Because the ones who matter already know the truth, and the ones who don't will never matter enough to deserve your energy. That's the kind of liberation they can't take away. Number 11. Their opinion of you is none of your business anymore. There's a shift that happens when you finally realize other people's opinions aren't about you at all. They're about them. For so long you carried the weight of what people thought, replaying their words and measuring yourself against their standards. If they approved, you felt worthy. If they criticized, you questioned everything about yourself. Their voices were living rent-free in your head, dictating your choices, your confidence, even your peace. But the moment you understood that most judgments are nothing more than projections of someone else's insecurities, you stopped giving them that power. Now their opinion of you is none of your business, because you've seen firsthand that people judge based on what's unresolved within themselves. Someone insecure about their own failures will call you arrogant for succeeding. Someone afraid of being abandoned will label you disloyal the moment you set boundaries. Someone consumed by jealousy will call you lucky to avoid acknowledging your hard work. None of that has anything to do with who you truly are. It has everything to do with who they are. That's why you DJF anymore. Their approval no longer determines your self-worth because you finally learned to validate yourself. You no longer wait for applause to feel accomplished or for recognition to feel seen. You've built an inner foundation so strong that external chatter can't shake it. Their voices used to echo loud in your head, but now it's just background noise because your focus has shifted inward. And here's the freedom in that. Once you stop caring, you also stop performing. You no longer bend yourself out of shape to win favor or shrink yourself to avoid criticism. You live authentically, even if people misunderstand it, because you know their perspective isn't your responsibility to fix. That space you used to give to their opinions has been reclaimed, and now it's invested in your peace, your purpose, and your growth. They'll keep talking, of course. That's what people do. But you've detached enough to recognize that their words don't define you, and they don't decide your future. The only voice that matters is the one inside you and the one above you. And once you made peace with that, their approval stopped buying real estate in your mind forever. Number 12. You no longer need to prove your worth. For a long time, you didn't even realize that most of the conflicts they pulled you into weren't about the issue at hand. They were about your worth. Every jab, every accusation, every manipulation was really an invitation to prove yourself. They wanted you defending your character, proving your loyalty, justifying your choices. They wanted you stuck in a cycle where your energy was spent trying to convince them that you were enough. And the more you explained, the more they twisted, because the goal was never to understand you. It was to keep you doubting yourself. But at some point, you woke up to the truth. Your worth was never up for debate. It was never something anyone else had the authority to measure, approve, or validate. Once you grasped that, everything shifted. You stopped falling for the traps. You stopped giving long explanations. You stopped trying to win arguments with people who had already decided what story they were going to believe. That's when their power over you broke. Not needing to prove yourself is one of the most liberating places to stand in. It means you know your value without needing it echoed back to you. You don't care if they call you cold, arrogant, selfish, or fake, because you understand that your essence is bigger than their labels. You carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows that truth doesn't need to be defended. It just needs to be lived. And this is why they keep talking about how you don't care anymore. What they're really saying is, we can't control you anymore. They can't bait you into draining arguments. They can't corner you into performing just to be accepted. They can't hold your worth hostage because you've taken it back into your own hands. That shift is power, and it unsettles them because it makes their tactics useless. You no longer need to prove your worth because you've already proven it to the only one that matters, yourself. And once you've reached that point, their opinions lose their sting, their traps lose their grip, and their approval loses its price. You stopped caring whether they saw your value because your value was never theirs to define in the first place. Number 13. Your peace offends their chaos. Your peace has become a problem for them. And it's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because it exposes everything they're trying to hide about themselves. They thrive in chaos. They live off drama, conflict, and emotional roller coasters, so when you stopped feeding into it and found a center that couldn't be shaken, it threw them off balance. Suddenly, they're the only ones raging, while you sit in calm detachment. And that calm becomes a mirror. It reflects back to them just how desperate, unstable, and dependent on conflict they really are. They can't stand that you don't react the way you used to. Before, they could count on you to explode, to defend, to cry, to fight. Now, you just sit still, and that stillness is louder than any argument. It's proof that they no longer have control over your emotions, and that truth is unbearable for people who once thrived on pulling your strings. Your peace strips them of their illusion of power. This is why your calm offends them so deeply. It highlights a contrast they can't escape. Your self-control against their impulsiveness, your stability against their chaos, your clarity against their confusion. Instead of admitting they need to work on themselves, it's easier for them to project and call you cold, arrogant, or fake. But deep down, they know the truth. You're showing them what it looks like to be free, while they're still chained to their dysfunction. What unsettles them most is that your peace doesn't just protect you, it exposes them. It reveals that all their attempts to control you were never about truth, justice, or fairness. They were about keeping you reactive so they could feel powerful. Now, without your energy fueling the fire, they're left with nothing but their own chaos to sit in. And the silence of that is deafening for them. Your detachment isn't cruelty, it's growth. It's the result of hard lessons, deep healing, and choosing not to let your emotions be at the mercy of someone else's instability. And while they may be offended by it, your peace is proof that you've broken free. You've chosen clarity over confusion, calm over chaos, and strength over control. Their frustration only confirms what you already know. Your peace is your greatest power. Number 14. You DGAF because you finally trust God's justice over human opinion. You didn't reach the point of not caring because you gave up. You reached it because you finally understood where real justice comes from. For so long you wasted energy trying to defend yourself, trying to correct lies, trying to get people to see the truth. You thought if you just explained clearly enough or fought hard enough, the scales would balance. But human opinion is fragile, fickle, and often corrupted. It bends to gossip, envy, and manipulation. And no matter how much you tried, you couldn't control it. That cycle exhausted you until one day you let go, and in letting go you found peace. Your indifference now is not born out of bitterness, but out of trust. You stopped chasing explanations because you realized not everyone deserves them. You stopped chasing revenge because you knew it would keep you tied to their game. You stopped chasing validation because you saw how cheap and temporary it was. Instead, you placed the outcome in hands far greater than theirs, God's. That decision shifted everything. When you trust God's justice, you stop obsessing over timing, exposure, or payback. You know truth doesn't need your constant defense because God has a way of revealing what's hidden at the right time, in the right way. And the beauty of it is this: you don't have to orchestrate it, stress over it, or manipulate it. That's why you DGAF about their opinions anymore. You know human voices can rise and fall, but God's verdict is final. This is why your detachment frustrates them. They wanted you stuck in the mud with them, arguing, explaining, proving, begging. But you shifted the fight out of their reach. You handed it over to a judge they can't bribe, silence, or deceive. And that terrifies them, because deep down they know no lie can survive against truth forever. Your indifference, then, is not a lack of care. It's proof of faith. It's the confidence that God's justice is bigger than their schemes, louder than their gossip, and stronger than their control. You DGAF, not because you're numb, but because you're free. And when freedom rests on trust in God's hands, no human opinion can touch it. At the end of the day, your indifference isn't weakness. It's power, precision, and freedom forged in fire. Every step that brought you here, every betrayal, every manipulation, every time they tried to drag you into chaos, all of it pushed you to a place where you no longer needed their approval, their explanations, or their validation. You've learned that caring selectively, protecting your energy, and refusing to play by rigged rules isn't coldness, it's mastery. Your silence, your detachment, your refusal to react are not signs of defeat. They are proof that you've transcended the level where petty games and shallow opinions can touch you. You no longer chase revenge, you no longer fight for understanding, and you no longer bend yourself to someone else's narrative. Instead, you stand grounded in your worth, your purpose, and your trust in a higher justice. And that is why they talk so much about how you DGAF, because they've lost the power they once held over you, and that loss terrifies them more than any argument ever could. Your calm exposes their chaos, your peace becomes their mirror, and your indifference starves them of the control they once thrived on. You've stopped proving yourself because you finally understand that your value was never theirs to define. You've stopped investing in fights that don't alter your destiny because your energy is sacred. You've learned that being misunderstood is liberation, and that your detachment is a weapon sharper than any word or gesture. This is the ultimate shift, freedom that can't be bargained for, respected by those who understand strength, and envied by those still trapped in their own games. You've stepped off the board of their rigged game, and in doing so, you've rewritten the rules. You've claimed victory simply by refusing to participate in their illusions. So carry this truth forward. Your indifference is your shield, your power, and your proof of ascension. Let them talk. Let them gossip. Let them spin their stories. None of it matters because you've already won. The peace, the clarity, and the freedom you've claimed are permanent, and nothing they do can take them from you. You DJF, and in that refusal, you have become unstoppable. If this message hit you at a deep level, make sure you don't just watch and move on. Subscribe to the channel now, so you never miss the truth that empowers and awakens. Smash that like button to show your energy aligns with growth and strength. Drop a comment below. Share your story, your insight, or simply your "I feel this" moment, because your voice matters here. And don't keep this power to yourself. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who needs the reminder that walking away is winning. Join the movement, engage, and let's rise together. God bless you.